what do you think is happening with Aaron Rodgers? Because he's a guy who's a strategist. He's quiet. He keeps all his cards close to the vest. What do you think is happening? Because should he not show up, he's bound to lose a lot of money. Obviously, Deshaun Watson had 10.54 million reasons to show up, but Aaron Rodgers he's holding his cards pretty tight.
He is. There's no question. And I think there's a lot of guessing going on. I don't know if they've gotten word in the last 24 hours or whatever, but I know that there are people in the Packers building that still didn't know whether or not he's going to show up, and the veterans are due to report tomorrow. And, I think you nailed it, Suzy, in saying that, like, everything here is strategic. And I think if we know Aaron Rodgers, we know these moves are calculated, and what he's doing and saying, none of it's by accident. And so I think you have to take what he says at face value and what he's doing at face value. Clearly there was a communication breakdown between he and the team over the Jordan Love pick. I think that sort of brought to light, I would say, a philosophical divide between player and team that's not unlike the divide between Brett Favre and the Packers 13, 14 years ago, which was a star player who wants to have a voice in the organization, and an organization that operates in a very old-school way, where they've had great players there, but they're in a different category than management or coaches. And so, how do you solve that? I'm not sure. I think, that's one piece of it. And then the second piece of it is what we saw happen over the last year in Tampa. And I think this stoked some fires in Seattle as well, where, I think players are looking at what Tom Brady did and what Tom Brady was able to accomplish in Tampa, and how the Bucs built around Tom Brady in almost a LeBron-esque kind of way. And they say, A, that's what I'm up against, and B, I want to have a situation like that. And, it's not just that Brady got it that way, it's that it worked. So I think those two things are sort of at work here. Both, Aaron wanting to have an organization built around him on his timeline with urgency, which is sort of the Brady model now. And then number two, just the personality conflicts that I think exist, not between Aaron and the coaching staff, but Aaron in the front office.
No doubt. And I think you actually hit the nail on the head there, that obviously the Arians-Brady relationship and what happened in Tampa has changed things for everyone. And Aaron Rodgers has been around long enough to deserve the respect, and he probably sees what Brady did and said, well, I want that. So the question will be now, obviously, will he play out the season in the hopes of getting that ability to go where he wants to go next year? If you had to make a guess, what would you say?
I would say that there's probably some sort of one-year Band-Aid put on it, which is, by the way, exactly what happened in Seattle. I think Russell Wilson came to the conclusion that the best place for him in 2021 was going to be in Seattle. I don't think anything's settled long-term there, but at the very least, they were able to get Russell locked into playing this year for the Seahawks. And I just think the Packers are so determined not to trade him. And Suzy, as much as anything else, it's about the makeup of the team, right? And I guess let's just take the four quarterbacks that have sort of been out there as guys to be traded that are huge names that aren't reclamation projects. And those four are Rodgers, Wilson, Matthew Stafford, and Deshaun Watson. And I think the primary difference that a lot of people are missing here is the makeup of those teams. Detroit and Houston are rebuilding. And so for those teams, it's a little easier to wrap your head around the idea of moving a player like that. The Packers, the Seahawks were in the playoffs last year. They've got a ton of players in their prime. I mean, the right thing for those organizations is to hang on for as long as they can with the quarterbacks to give the other guys in the locker room and the coaches that are there the best chance to compete. So my guess would be there's some sort of one-year Band-Aid, whether it's in the form of a one-year raise, a new contract. This isn't about money, as we've established, but I'm sure money can be a part of the solution, even if it wasn't part of the problem. So I think there's some sort of monetary solution that leads to, maybe some sort of one-year fix where if things don't change between now and January or February, the Packers and Rodgers are right back where they started.
And, of course, Aaron Rodgers would be the first Packer to play 17 seasons. Bart Starr and Brett Favre had 16, and he's tied with that. The thing I want to point out, too, and I'm curious because you know him, he went through the Brett Favre scorn. when the Packers brought him in and Brett Favre wanted nothing to do with him. I think it's worth noting that he has taken Jordan Love under his wing and that he has tutored him and he has helped him along. He knows firsthand how it felt to be shunned by the guy that was threatened by him. I think it says a lot about Aaron Rodgers that he has been so open to bringing this kid along.
Yeah, I mean, I give him credit for that. Like, you know, the one thing about Brett Favre's approach, if you remember, it was sort of like he kind of like detached himself from the organization. And in a way, Suzy, that almost made it cleaner for the Packers. You know, like he would go down to Mississippi and they could do their business and he'd do his business. And, you know, maybe he was mad, but he was away from everybody else. Aaron, to his credit, like, hasn't, you know, taken this out on his coaches who aren't really a part of the problem. He hasn't taken this out on his teammates. Now, like, that sounds great, but, you know, it makes for some blurred lines there. And I think, you know, you see what's happening with Devontae Adams now, and you see what's happening with Zadarius Smith. And I think even some of the coaches might have some divided loyalties when it comes to this, you know, so you're right. Like, I think that, like, Aaron has done a good job of not taking this out on Jordan Love or other people that aren't a part of the problem that he has with the organization. But in a funny way, I think that's almost made things a little bit messier for the Packers themselves.
And, you know, it's a part of the transition. We saw it with Brady, with Garoppolo. He didn't want a younger guy around either. He wanted him out of there. But what's a team supposed to do, Albert? At some point, you have to have a plan. You can't just go, it's not a bunch of friends. It's an organization to make money and to win. It's a hard one. I'm not sure where I would be if I were a GM. I mean, if you have a talent like Aaron Rodgers, who's a once-in-a-lifetime talent, you do have to have a plan, though.
I agree with that, but I also think, like, in this day and age, I just think, like, even if the players aren't partners with the team, like, which, like, they really, like, they aren't, you know what I mean? Like, but, like, you want to make them feel like they're partners, right? And especially quarterbacks who are treated in so many different ways, like quasi-management. So, you know, I think in both the situations with Brady and with Rodgers, if their teams had given them a heads up, right, like whether it was a week ahead of time, whatever, I think that would have gone a long way. And I can still remember with Brady and Garoppolo, you know, they take Garoppolo. I think Brady was kind of blindsided by it. And then Belichick got up at his press conference and said, well, we all know Tom's contract situation and age. And, I mean, Tom was getting older but still planning to play for a long time. And, like, he had consistently taken less to stay with the team. So he was miffed by that, you know. On top of not getting a heads up, then it was like you trampled over him on the way to going and drafting Jimmy Garoppolo. And I think that lingered, you know. And I think in a similar way here, if the Packers had called Aaron Rodgers a week and a half before the draft and just said, hey, we really like the Utah State quarterback. I don't know if he's going to be there. But if he is there, we might get aggressive and go and get him. We want to make sure you knew. Maybe he's mad in the moment. But, Suzy, if it's you, like, you probably get over that quicker, right, than not having heard, than having to learn while they were on the clock that they were taking the quarterback. Like, I just think there's like a human element to this, that in this day and age, you want to make those players feel like they're almost partners in the organization. And, you know, you're certainly not doing that by keeping them in the dark in decisions like this.
Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.